Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome. It's a Saturday afternoon, and that means it's time for some Premier League action here at House Party 5v5. Now, today is going to be kind of a special day in terms of how things are laid out. The way the week was scheduled this time, every team plays the team that they're matched with twice. Instead of Team A playing Team B once and then Team C once, it's going to be A versus B twice. So today we're going to have 5 matches for you guys. The first 2 matches are going to be Never Clucky versus Spooky Midnight, and then the same thing again. The third match will be Syndicate versus White Lightning, and then the fourth and fifth matches are going to be Space Age Wizards versus Team Everest. So we're going to have the rare treat of seeing some outside of playoffs, game-by-game adaptations in what's effectively going to be some best-of-2 play. I'm really excited to see how it goes. I hope you are too. I'm Captain Flowers here on the casting desk for the first 3 games of the day, joined by Deck Club Ace. Deck, what are your thoughts?
I'm actually really excited, particularly because, one, we do have Spooky Midnight and Never Clucky. Both of them are, I wouldn't say that they're even, but they're close enough that both games will be very good. And even if the first game is an obvious win for one or the other, I don't even think that that's going to count them out. Because the thing is, if you come off a game losing really hard, then if you're up against the same team, you're going to realize whether or not you can change up your team comp, maybe surprise them, pull something out that they weren't expecting. So that's going to be really cool. And then, of course, the third game of the day, we've got another really fun game of the Syndicate versus White Lightning, which I know if you're not looking forward to it, I am certainly looking forward to it, because I want to see if White Lightning can come back from the last time we saw them go against Syndicate.
Well, Syndicate has had nothing less than a phenomenal showing so far this season. They are still undefeated. Nobody has managed to really even come that close to beating them. So White Lightning's definitely going to have to bring their A game to take them down in game number 3. Spooky Midnight is currently sitting on a 5-4 record. Never Clucky sitting on a 4-5 record going into this season. So only a single win separating the way these two teams are standing in the current lineup for who's winning what in Premier League. So this should be a really close match. I think we should see a lot of close competition. Azir, Graves, and Braum going to be picked up for Clucky, while Spooky goes for the Nami and Lee Sin early on. Jetrix, once again, going to be able to pick up that favorite comfort pick with the Lee.
Right, you are. And the Yasuo being hovered over here for the red side. Not actually sure if they're going to pick that up, but if they do, it is something that you can play against things like Azir. You can actually kind of stop him from killing you, I guess. But if it gets played top lane, a little bit less common. Never mind. Twisted Fate being picked up. Very strong pick. We've actually seen it resurfacing a lot recently, mostly because people are realizing that he's not as bad as he was for a little while there, since a lot of the mid lane was all assassins and like super bursty mages. It turns out that a highly mobile mage who can get around wherever he wants to go is incredibly useful in the current meta. And the instalock Ashe.
I don't know if mobile is the right word for Twisted Fate. When I think mobile, I generally think, movement capabilities, dashes, things that help you move on a micro scale. Twisted Fate's got great macro mobility.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
It's a non-standard definition of the word.
Yeah, he's useful in that he can bring the teleport like a lot of the other mid laners these days do bring every once in a while, and also he can also function as being able to get around without needing the teleport, because he can teleport to another lane using his ult. The Echo being picked up, that's probably going to be the Echo top lane, meaning we will see the Azir mid lane versus this Twisted Fate. That leaves the top lane over on the side of Spooky Midnight. Kind of curious to see what they're going to pull out, because they will be against this Echo, and Maokai and Swain are banned.
Vlad is still open, though. And Vlad, I don't know if you know about kind of what's been going on over the course of the last patch, but
he's been pretty good.
Everyone and their grandmother is banning Vlad. Nobody wants to deal with him.
The minor changes they made to him changed how well he plays, because the problem was that for a while there was no reason to use Tides of Blood, because unless you got right on top of somebody, you took way more damage than you actually did. So it was really weird. But now, between the bonuses like being able to heal yourself with transfusion, the damage from Tides of Blood, people figuring out how to use the Hextech Proto Belt and some of the other things that you can build for him now, I think he's actually becoming a huge nuisance. Instead, we're going to see that Shen being picked up.
Now, there's an unusual one.
I will say,
honestly, Shen, TF, and Ashe all in the same game. This is definitely some unorthodox pick ban coming through.
I was gonna say, it's a little unorthodox, but I kind of like what Spooky Midnight has done with their team comp, because if you look at it, they have this really good global team comp. Like, disregarding the Lee Sin, he is really mobile, so he can be around pretty much anywhere, and the Nami, who's probably just gonna be falling around the Ezreal all the time. The Ezreal ult, global ultimate. Shen being able to come in from anywhere on the map. TF basically anywhere on the map once a certain point in the game starts. So I'm kind of curious to see whether or not they're going to leverage that to go for some early objectives, or if they're just going to try and get some kill picks, because with the Lee Sin, you never know. Now, looking at Neverclucky's lineup, though, they got this really nice, like, mid-range brawling comp.
Neverclucky's got the ability to protect the Azir using what Braum and Echo are able to bring to the table. They've also got the Ashe, which can set up pick potential. If Azir is able to follow up on an awesome arrow connecting, he'll have more than enough damage to take down that target. But one thing that I'm really expecting to see a lot of this game is Spooky Midnight 5-man ganks bottom lane. If you draft Twisted Fate and Shen, and do not pile everybody into bottom lane every chance you get and make those two people's life just a living hell, I don't know why you drafted the champions.
See, I'm kind of curious to see whether or not they will actually try to go for some early dragon control, and if so, if they're going for this early bot lane, hard push stuff, hard ganks, early control on the dragon, they're relying on a little bit of luck that the dragons will be ones they want, because with a team comp like this, Ocean Drake isn't actually that useful. It is kind of useful, but Ezreal builds a decent amount of mana / mana regen, depending upon the build you're going. Nami doesn't really need it. Shen doesn't really need it. Lee Sin certainly doesn't need it that much. The only person who really benefits from Ocean Drake is Twisted Fate.
Well, everybody's going to be always looking for Fire Drakes. Fire Drake is
That's
the
true.
one that no matter what team composition you're pulling, you always want to take that. Fire Drake, actually, I noticed this the other day when I was playing solo queue. Fire Drake is one of the only ones that will actively make your opponents... It is the only one that will actively make your opponents make stupid plays trying to get it, because it's that worthwhile trying to take compared to all the other ones. Earth Drake and Ocean Drake can both be useful in a variety of situations. Sometimes they're a lot more useful than other times. And Cloud Drake is pretty much, okay, unless this is a gimme, we're not going to waste the effort trying to grab this. So with a team like this, that I do expect to see a lot of focus on the bot lane with, Spooky Midnight is going to have a much better game if they can pile... If, say, the first 2 dragons are those Fire Drakes, that's going to be very nice for Spooky Midnight.
Definitely not a situation you want to be in up against, considering how well they'll be able to control it. But we're going to see how that goes in the lanes. I'm curious to see how this bot lane is going to go, because it's been at least a little while since we've seen an Ashe, let alone an Ashe into an Ezreal. So... not actually sure how that's going to swing. I think that Ezreal does still have the advantage here simply because he's a little bit more mobile than Ashe, and by a little bit, I mean quite a bit more mobile. But with a Braum there, I'm not so sure, because Braum and Ashe are really good together.
Braum and Ashe can work out well together, but at the same time, an immobile AD carry is pretty easy to bubble if you've got the bubble mechanics. So it's going to be up to Collateral to shut down Talisman's DPS in these trades back and forth and make sure that him and Angel aren't able to put together that Freljord synergy and take Intercourse's Ezreal out. We're 10 seconds away from launching into game number 1, so keep it here, everybody. It's Neverclucky versus Spooky Midnight to send off House Party 5v5's Premier League action for the day with an awesome opening. We'll be right back.
Welcome to Summoner's Rift, ladies and gentlemen. We are in the first game of the day for House Party 5v5's Premier League. First game is, of course, Never Clucky versus Spooky Midnight. Bit of a mid-range team comp on the side of Never Clucky and a global team comp on the side of Spooky Midnight. I'm, of course, Declivate on color, and I'm being joined by Captain Flowers on play-by-play. And once again, the line of scrimmage is setting itself up.
Every single time these days in these house party games, we're seeing both teams just draw that line across the entirety of the map, prevent each other from getting any further into their own territory than they'd like to see them, and just wait out the minions.
So a lot of that, I think, comes down to that they don't really want to risk anything, because the early advantage that you can gain from getting a kill, maybe from the invade, is not necessarily worth the tempo loss that you could have by being surprised by something else. So, like, even if you could get a kill, you might have to trade a lot for it, and particularly right now, that's not really something that you're willing to trade.
Now, the way that this is going to start out, or the way that we were talking about expecting to see things start out, at least in Champion Select, is for Spooky Midnight to focus their efforts towards bottom lane. But what's this deck? Some lane swap shenanigans going down.
What's even better about this lane swap is there's absolutely no way that Never Clucky can see this coming, because the ward positioning that they have only shows whether or not there's any invading coming in and whether the jungler is starting near certain areas. So they don't actually know that this is happening yet. It's looking like we're going to see...
This is going to be interesting.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, this is not something we see very often. Usually whenever we get a lane swap, the lane swap actually just either gets mirrored or they're just following each other around.
Yeah, normally the lane swap, you don't actually get to see it turn into 2v1 lanes like it's originally intended to be played, because teams end up getting the knowledge they need through the early wards to say, oh, okay, they're going to lane swap, we'll just swap right back, and all of a sudden it's just flip-flop. But this time, we will see Intercourse and Collateral in the top half of the map. You've already got Talisman and Angel showing up bot side. They can't afford to go back and reposition now, so we're going to see that 1v2 life, except both top laners are going to just stick with the junglers for now.
Actually, I'm going to point something out, though. So, N-Step is following around Jetrix, but Hayam Nerb actually had to walk all the way from top lane to the bot side because he didn't notice that it was a lane swap until they got to the lane and he was there. And
now they're walking into the south side jungle, which is practically completely taken.
Yeah, it is only just respawning a camp. And... Or no, they didn't even take the Gromp. They went straight for the Wolves after they got the camp. So they're only going to get that one camp. They're going to possibly try and push this tower down, but at this point, the minion advantage is already on Spooky Midnight's side. They've already got this set up to do exactly what they want.
Spooky has made their move early on. They're looking to make this game be very fast-paced early. We're not going to see one of those house party matches where it's 17 minutes into the game before turret number 1 goes down. Instead, we're going to see some nice early objective trading, some nice aggro play coming out. And I want to see how they continue to do this after these first 2 turrets drop. Because we've seen lane swaps in the past in House Party 5v5 games where they take down the outer turrets just like they're doing right now. The top one in... Or, excuse me, the blue team top lane turret, the red team bottom lane turret, and then everything just kind of stops. It's put on pause.
It turns into a stalemate because usually the initial aggression is towards the bot side. You want to get that early tower because the bot turrets are the most valuable turrets early on because it gives you that really, really easy dragon control. Mid turret is very useful because it lets your mid laner roam a little bit more, but overall you really want to get that early bot side turret. Now, unfortunately, it doesn't look like this worked out quite the way that Spooky Midnight wanted, because Never Clucky managed to not take as much damage in the process. They got a little bit more damage onto that other tower, and they got to push it in. We did see, though, a really good decision coming out from Intercourse. He managed to maintain the minion wave topside simply by tanking up the minions and just letting them hit him while they were getting the tower. So the minions never actually reached their minions until after the tower had fallen.
Good heads-up play coming from him, trying to control those waves a little bit, make things as easy as possible for Nerb once he gets himself back up there. Nerb, of course, only just now starting to farm up, and he's not going to have a fun time trying to make that happen with Jetrix showing up here in the top lane, looking for the damage. A little bit more is going to come through, and they'll take him down most assuredly. Nerb almost able to make the outplay, and he does. First blood goes the way of Never Clucky's top laner. It's a 2v1, but he doesn't care about the odds because he's still got the ability to make the play his own. End of the day, we will see 1-for-1 going down there, but you've got to be happy about that one if you're Nerb.
I mean, who needs to manipulate odds when you can control time?
When you control time and 3.5 minion waves, anything is possible.
That's very true. And one thing I wanted to point out, though, was he almost killed Jetrix, too. If he'd managed to get that last dash off and get right back into the stun as soon as it came up, he would have actually killed him. Oh, Jetrix might actually still die here.
Jetrix stuck around a little bit too long. Into the line comes through, and the smoke grenade of all things. Voice takes Jetrix down. I don't know why Jetrix wanted to go back and land that last sonic wave, but it ends up being a death sentence for him. As Neverclucky finds their second kill, but they're still down about 600 gold.
Is the end of the line for him, and meanwhile in top lane, Ncl is got a nice little wave frozen outside his tower, not a position high up there wants to begin. Bot side, meanwhile.
Look at the top lane CS comparison.
Oh yeah,
20 to 3. And Ncl's got level 4 compared to level 3 on Nerv. Ncl's just beating him around with those thunder sticks.
It is pretty obnoxious how far ahead he is. He did manage to get a couple of the small minion camps from the jungle, so I mean, I guess maybe some of that might be weighted towards small numbers, but even so, that's still not a position you want to be in, especially since you just died and didn't really get more than like half a wave of CS. We did see Talisman was by himself bot lane. Didn't really seem to affect him very much. Trying to get a little bit of solo XP to catch up to Intercourse, because Intercourse right now is almost a full level ahead, simply because he's gotten a little bit more CS and XP.
So Spooky Midnight, although things aren't going the way they were looking in the top part of the map in terms of those fights, they're still ahead in terms of gold. Izumi Shinichi going to be shoving bubbles around here early on, up to a 7 CS advantage. Nothing too crazy, but of course, Azir only gets more powerful as the game goes on. So if he's got an easy laning phase where he's in control the entire time, that's exactly what he needs. Jetrix with a gank. Going to be able to find that Thunderlord's proc with Sonic Wave and Resonating Strike, put some real pain onto Izumi. No actual threat of death, but it's enough to scare him back a little bit, allow Bubbles some breathing room.
It's not threat of death, but losing half your health because of a Thunderlord's proc on Lee Sin is
It's a bad sign.
Not a very happy situation to be in, especially when you're up against a Twisted Fate who at any time could lock a gold card and just flash auto Q you and you die. So once the pick a card, once the wild cards all go out, there's not really much that you can do about it if you're stunned up. He does have the cleanse, but cleanse isn't going to stop you from the cards.
One thing these guys got to be aware of on the side of Neverclucky is Instep's got Stand United available. Good sidestep from Talisman, keeping himself alive through the bubble. But now Intercourse and Collateral looking to make this one happen a little bit further. Talisman gets himself away ever so barely. Instep going to get himself in here using the power of that ultimate. Not accomplishing anything with it. Intercourse is completely out of mana. If he would have had the ability to throw one more Mystic Shot in there, they likely would have brought Talisman down. Talisman's got to be wiping the sweat off his forehead from that one. That was way too
gank bot lane coming.
We told you it was going to happen in Champion Select. This is what you pick Shen and Twisted Fate for, to make sure the enemy team's bot lane never wants to play bot lane again. The bubble, into the taunt, into the plays, into the cards. There they go. Talisman's going to be the first one to fall. They rotate Voice down in time to keep Angel alive, but Spooky Midnight is looking to make those bot lane plays. Jetrix from behind, looking to find the kill into Angel. He's got the kick, got the Sonic Wave. Goodbye, Braum. Jetrix having to run himself away now. Bubbles looking to help her teammate. Got the stun card, a little bit more damage from those wild cards. Spooky Midnight backs themselves away as their opponents have to do the same. With 2 dead, well, only 1 now still dead on the side of Neverclucky. Spooky Midnight has controlled the bottom lane well enough to claim the Tier 1 turret.
Definitely a position you want to be in. They will probably be able to also get the dragon off of this. They are all here. Be kind of surprised if they didn't go straight for the dragon after this. One thing I want to say, though, while it didn't go the way that Neverclucky wanted, they did lose their bot lane tower, and they lost Ashe and Braum. Mad props to S Angel. He did manage to save Talisman. I don't even know if you noticed it. He managed to pop up the shield and caught Ezreal's auto attacks. So he caught Intercourse's auto attacks right as it was going to kill Talisman.
Doing what you gotta do to keep your AD carry alive. A true support here with S Angel. Sadly, wasn't able to keep himself or his AD carry alive at the end of the day after everybody from Spooky came down and had their say. And now Spooky's up almost 2,000 gold just 9 minutes into this game, plus that dragon they just found.
Right, you are. Izumi, a little bit of farming
but it's
in the
just
mid
Cloud
lane.
Dragon. So that's
just
what we were
Cloud
talking about in the lobby, right? If they get a bunch of Cloud Dragons, this strategy's nowhere near as strong as if they get a bunch of Fire Dragons.
Well, it was Ocean Dragons because they're less valuable. I actually think Cloud Dragons are a little bit more useful for their team comp because they're aiming to get around the map really fast. So this is one of the few situations where I might say that Cloud Drake is better than Ocean Drake.
Well, we'll have to see if those Cloud Drakes end up paying off. The next dragon that's going to spawn will be another Cloud. So So if they're going to maintain control of that Dragon Pit, they will be well on their way to having that nice blue streak behind them after they pick up 3.
The
Ash arrow here in the mid lane connects onto Bubbles. Here comes the shuffle. They're looking to knock her backwards into the rest of the team, getting away to safety. She's got her team nearby, and Angel's going to be the first one to fall. Instep in the middle of everybody. Spirit's Refuge has found its place in the center of the team fight. High-Eye Nairb is here, but he has to chrono break out immediately just to get himself out of harm's way. Spooky Midnight has found 1 for 0 off the back of what originally looked like a pick onto their mid laner, but Spooky has that quick hustle to turn things around and show Never Clucky they're still in control.
Good positioning from the rest of Spooky Midnight. Rest in peace, Talisman. Not much you can do against the Lee Sin that's right next to you.
And of course, going to be stunned up. Boy's looking to jump himself here in the middle, but a double kill for Jetrix means Spooky Midnight is just taking this game over. Instep getting himself away ever so barely, using the flash to get out of range of that last turret auto attack. 4, 1, and 2 on Jetrix Lee Sin. This is the 3rd week in a row now that teams have given him Lee Sin, and he has done pretty darn well on it.
I just want to bring some attention to that because we're still seeing people not banning Lee Sin against him. They're banning things that they consider like overpowered in the meta right now, or things that they just don't want to see because of their team comps. Jetrix is like 60+% win rate on Lee Sin, and that's not like 60% with, oh, he's played like 6 games, 7 games. He's played like almost 60 games as Lee Sin in ranked, so he's got some experience on Lee Sin. You definitely don't want to let him have it unless you're very comfortable against it, and it doesn't really seem they're that comfortable against it right now. Maybe something to consider in the second game.
Well, so many people right now don't really respect the Lee pick, and I'm saying that because I'm one of them. When I see Lee Sin picked in a ranked game that I'm playing, I'm not afraid of it or intimidated of it whatsoever. But when you do get one of those players that is a master at Lee Sin, that is very familiar with the champion, that knows his limits, knows exactly what he can do, and pushes those limits constantly, that's when you end up against a 4, 1, and 2 Lee Sin that might just be able to carry his team straight to your Nexus.
Definitely, and I almost compare it to a couple years ago when we saw a few other champions banned like that, LeBlanc being a good example. We also saw, who was it? For a little while it was Corki was banned that way for mid lane, because sure, they were good like by themselves, but once you found somebody that was really good at it, they went from having like around a 50-ish% win rate to like 65 or 70%. So not something you just want to give up. Now, looking over at the way things are running, it's looking like Spooky Midnight is putting a little bit of pressure onto this top side. Looks like the global ultimates are split up a little bit so they can get around. All the ultimates are up. Everyone is ready to do whatever they need to get anywhere.
And so far, it's been Spooky Midnight making the plays, or at least making the successful plays. We saw Clucky try to find that arrow in the mid lane. They tried to find the pick that you draft the Ashe to set up, but then Spooky was there. They were ready to counterattack. They got everybody in and turned the play completely around. Clucky's got to make sure when they're trying to make these plays against Spooky that they're doing it right. Jetrix jumping in here on Voice, looking to force the fight immediately. Thunderlord's going to proc. Here comes Instep, looking to get himself involved. Bubbles is there as well, and that is the power of the Spooky Midnight pick machine. Bubbles having to walk herself away here, trying to lock in the right cards, but the stun comes through for Nairb as Spooky has to hightail it out of there. More arrows coming through in the power of the volley as Azumi Shinichi off to the side, trying to get himself some sort of angle to work his way in here. Won't successfully do so. Jetrix going to take a lot of damage from those soldiers. Don't just want to walk haphazardly through there. But Spooky Midnight once again setting up shop, trying to put a couple of auto attacks, just bit by bit, chipping away on this tier 1 turret in the mid lane.
Looks like Jetrix didn't quite give as much respect to the Azumi Azir here. He isn't quite that far behind. He may be 0-0 compared to your 3-0-2 Twisted Fate, but he does have a Nashor's Tooth, and you don't have any MR. That does do a lot of damage, and you got to be really careful about it. Still, that's not really a position you want to be in for Never Clucky, because if you look at their lineups, they might have some ahead in terms of CS. They have a lead in mid lane, they have a lead in bot lane, a deficit in top lane, but that's a lot of kills to be behind. You're a tower behind, you're a dragon behind. It's not really a position that you want to be in, and you're constantly on your back foot. They haven't really been able to make any aggressive plays besides the one attempt to kill Bubbles, and that just didn't work because she had Flash and Ghost up, and her team was nearby.
And take a look at this as well. Intercourse is building Trinity Force after its changes on Ezreal as opposed to Iceborne Gauntlet. And I don't know how many times you've seen new Trinity Force get built since the changes, but this thing is nasty now. On every champion except for Yasuo or Gangplank or something that revolves around crit, it is just superior to the previous one. Jetrix up in the top lane, finds the kill into High I'm Nairb. He can't get himself away in time. No point in even wasting the flash of the Chrono Break. He was dead 100%. He recognizes it, saves those resources, and Spooky Midnight heads over to the Rift Herald.
Part of that, though, I kind of chalk up to he can't use the Chrono Break if he's in the air, and Jetrix actually waited until he was sure that he could kill him with the return on the Sonic Wave Resonating Strike. So it's possible he didn't use it because he knew he was going to die. It's also possible he just couldn't use it. That being said, though, the Dragon is alive in bot side. We do see N-Step over there cleaning up some shop for it. In the Rift Herald for Spooky Midnight here, going straight to Jetrix.
Spooky Midnight is so in control this game. And this is a team that didn't finish exceptionally high last season, going up against the current reigning champions of Premier League in Never Clucky. This is an awesome showing from Spooky.
This is definitely a position that you want to be in. You want to show off in the first game that you are dominant in this series, but as I mentioned in the Champ Select, just because you're ahead now doesn't mean that you're going to win both games, and for it to be really useful, you got to win both games. Spooky Midnight may be ahead of Never Clucky in the standings right now, but if they win one and lose one, they're just in the same position.
Fair enough. We'll have to see if they're able to lock that one away, but before we even worry about both games together, we got to worry about this game right now. Spooky Midnight has been in control the entire time. 3,500 gold, now their lead 17 minutes into this game. Izumi Shinichi has himself a blue buff, Nashor's Tooth and Sorcerer's Shoes completed. He's got to find some way to make something big happen in these fights. All of Never Clucky has to find some way to make something big happen in these fights, because so far, nothing has come up the way they want, and Spooky Midnight has always found a way to get Instep and Bubbles into the mix and make the plays happen in their favor.
Right, you are. That Dragon going over to Spooky Midnight. It was a Cloud Drake, so not the most useful thing in the world, but a little bit more useful for them than the Ocean Drake. Fire Drake is the next one. To watch over for the next couple of minutes, because the teams are going to be trying to set up as much vision down here as possible. We already see Spooky Midnight trying to dominate some control, clear out any vision they see here. Pushing down this tower. Potentially trying to go for this bot side turret. They could do it. N-Step has Stand United. Bubbles has Destiny. If they really wanted to, they could pressure this. And there's not really much that... Uh-oh. Voice goodbye.
I absolutely want to see him pressuring it. Voice going to be knocked backwards from the power of the kick. Jetrix got to be a little bit careful. Instep getting himself in the mix. He's found the taunt onto Angel. Bubble coming through as well. Sonic Wave is down. Glacial Fissure going to be used defensively. Instep has to go in full retreat. Collateral is going to be casualty number one. Bubbles works her way into the fight, but what is she going to do in that position? Nair finds the stun, but it's only onto Instep. Volley's coming through. Will not connect for any sort of a kill. Intercourse having to run himself away. Heal's going to be used. He's already dead. Angel takes the kill, but Clucky still found themselves 2 for 0. Nair and Angel continuing to chase Instep away, and Spooky Midnight commits their first major error of this game.
The worst part about that is that it seemed like it was going to go their way. They had a potential 5v4 in bot lane. We see Izumi was mid lane, still pushing, managed to get that first tower, might even get this second tower. Never mind, ran out of minions here, but Bubbles needs to be really careful. She can't quite fight Izumi when she's that low and has very low mana. Although, very good standing from Never Clucky.
It looked so good at the start. It looked like they had the kick on the Voice, but what I was talking about earlier, how Spooky Midnight was always there pulling the trigger at the right time and making the plays, they kind of fumbled around for a second. They had the gun in their hand and they were just juggling it all over the place, and they couldn't pull the trigger on Voice in time. He gets himself away, the fight gets completely botched, and for the first time this game, Clucky out-rotates Spooky. Bubbles doesn't arrive in that fight until it's already way too late.
It's very unfortunate for Spooky Midnight. That does mean Never Clucky is slowly climbing up that deficit that they had. Getting 2 kills is nice, getting a little bit of shutdown gold is nice, but more importantly, they got another tower in mid lane. The mid side inner turret is actually really low now, so if Izumi gets up there again, that's something you want to deal with. And one thing to note, Izumi is currently the strongest person on the side of Never Clucky, and he wasn't there.
Nerf's trying to force the issue. The arrow comes through. Intercourse in a whole lot of trouble. Here comes collateral damage, and Nerf's going to take the credit for kill number 1. Izumi trying to use those soldiers to throw Jetrix back into the fight, but he will not succeed in doing so. Never Clucky's found themselves 1 for 0. They'll have to settle for that in the tier 2 turret. As they continue to push up in the mid lane, Izumi has set up shop, and Clucky is looking to force even more now. Trying to get the stun. He's got it on a collateral, and they're going to go deep. They've already found him. Jetrix and Bubbles got to be careful here. Angel's going to have that Sonic Wave on the back of him, walking himself away. No big deal. Voice needs a couple more auto attacks onto that turret to take it out. Angel's got such low health left. He's got to walk himself away. But Never Clucky is ecstatic with the result of that fight. They almost got the inhibitor turret down 20 minutes into this game after just completely being on their back foot for the first 15.
The best part about this is it sets them up into a good position to potentially get this dragon next. They have a large wave that's building bot side against them, but that'll get cleared out really fast. Top side is also against them. That'll also get cleared out. It's looking like Spooky Midnight's going for a sneaky Baron play here, though.
Spooky Midnight showing they're not afraid to try something risky. They've got people in the pit looking to make things happen, but Nair wanting to stop this. He has to stop this. He doesn't connect onto his parallel convergence shield. Collateral's got the tidal wave. Nair jumping himself back, but he jumps back a little bit too early. Jetrix has kill number 1. Izumi Shinichi's going to clean up Bubbles. It's a 1-for-1 so far. Ash Arrow connects. Double kill for Izumi Shinichi. Instep and Collateral having to run for the hills. Both carries on Spooky Midnight are dead in the dirt, and we've still got 4 Never Clucky soldiers pushing their way into that Baron Nashor pit.
Props to Izumi with some really good soldier movement in that fight. Managed to pick up 2 kills. Almost got a 3rd kill too, but not quite in range. This will be a fairly easy Baron unless we see a steal from Jetrix here.
You've still got Jetrix nearby. He's still Lee Sin, which has amazing steal potential, and Baron's putting a lot of pain down onto Never Clucky. Voice almost getting killed immediately. Instep in the middle. Spirit's Refuge is down. Angel's already been killed. Instep knocked backwards towards Baron. He's going to be the target of the aggro. The spikes come through, and Izumi Shinichi's going to take the kill credit. Instep falls as a trade for that enemy support. Is it even? You tell me, but Talisman, Voice, and Izumi are not too happy about being sent home without that purple buff floating around.
They all recalled it roughly at the same time though, so unfortunately for Bubbles, that does mean that her ultimate was kind of wasted. They can't really get anything off of that, but I almost would say that it was worth. They didn't get the buff that they wanted. They traded Angel for N-Step though, and a little bit more pushing down in the mid lane. Quite what they're expecting here. Of course, needs to be careful though.
This is anybody's game now. At the start, this looked so pro Spooky Midnight. It was like, man, Spooky Midnight drafted this Twisted Fate and Shen composition. They've been playing it wonderfully. They got the picks they needed. And then off the back of that really, really bad fight bottom lane that transitioned into a good Never Clucky play in the mid lane, Clucky has brought this sucker right back to even. And now comes the problem of Lee Sin. When you've got 6 of your kills on Lee Sin, they're not on a champion that could carry a lot better than Lee Sin might be able to. I don't know about you, Deck, but my game's currently frozen. I can't see anything now.
I can see, and in fact, Never Clucky is actually getting the Infernal Drake. They managed to get it with no contest because at the time, there's not really much that can be done. N-Step did have the teleport available, but because Stand Unite was not available and because there was no easy vision for him to teleport to, it's like Spooky Midnight just decided that it wasn't worth trying to contest that Infernal Drake in a position where they weren't actually sure if they could win.
My client has just been utter garbage since the most recent patch. It just lags all over the place, always makes these errors. I'm actually pretty disappointed it's messing up during Spectator now as well. Deck, you're going to have to cover this one for a second. Okay, now it's working. I am so confused. I apologize, ladies and gentlemen. I'm just having this thing spaz out all over me. First it says it's not working, then it says it is, then it just crashes directly. I think I'm back. I think we're working. We're 24 minutes into the game. We found an Ash Arrow onto Bubbles, 188. She's already dead in the ground. Collateral's going to be the next one to go. Instep trying to get himself in the middle of the mix. Do whatever he can. What were those soldiers aimed at? Izumi Shinichi throws that one sideways as Voice and Talisman continue to put down the range damage that might just be able to lock away this Spooky Midnight inhibitor 20 minutes into the game. Jetrix has found an awesome pick onto Izumi Shinichi. Instep's got the shutdown, and now Spooky Midnight might have found their opportunity to go even harder onto their opponents. Voice going to take auto attack after auto attack from Intercourse, but Ezreal's got to be careful about trading those close range blows with Graves.
At this point, Neverclucky just needs to back off, lick their wounds. They did manage to get that tower down. That was something that they wanted, but they couldn't quite get that inhibitor. Unfortunately, I feel like Neverclucky is actually going to be in a position to maybe do something in a few minutes here. They do have a huge wave bot lane. It does draw Bubbles' attention, but we will see top lane being pushed in slowly. They really need to get these towers down top lane. Of all of the lanes, top lane still is standing fairly strongly. It only has like a third of its health bar left, but that's enough that you can't just leave minions to kill it.
5-1-1 on Azumi Shinichi's Azir, making the plays so far this game. We won't mention that botched Emperor's Divide near the enemy inhibitor, but the Emperor is definitely here to rule so far. The pick has been paying off. Of course, Bubbles and Shen, like I was talking about earlier, those two were able to make their plays early on. Bubbles an instep on the TF and the Shen, I should say. They were able to make their plays early on, but then they just started hitting a wall, and that wall ultimately culminated in the sloppy play in bot lane, which made it so this pick composition, this catch you out, find you when you're with your pants down, make it so your guys can't rotate in time, hasn't really been able to find that same momentum since, and Neverclucky has picked up where Spooky Midnight left off.
The thing about this is that Spooky Midnight is still about 1.5k ahead. They do still have a lead. The problem is that that lead has slowly been withering away as the game has gone on, because even if Neverclucky hasn't gotten the kill advantage, they've gotten the advantage on the objectives now. They only have one dragon, but it's an Infernal Drake versus the Cloud Drake that Spooky Midnight has gotten. So overall, the dragon control has been better. Baron is available, but neither team can really go for that. We see the Destiny being popped here. Bubbles looking like potentially wants to go in.
Just a train of Neverclucky players walking away, single file, getting themselves out with no man left behind. Azumi Shinichi nowhere near the rest of the crew, but Bubbles has already worn out the duration of her ultimate, so she won't be able to make a port on top of anyone, as Spooky Midnight is now likely going to want to wait out that cooldown and look to make another pick once it's back up.
Important power spike here coming from Spooky Midnight. Intercourse's Mana Moon is almost fully stacked. One more spell, it'll be fully stacked, and that'll be a huge boost to his damage. Azumi wants to be in with this Trinity Force. Already has the Cull stacks already expended. Can sell that whenever he wants, get a little bit of bonus gold. Like, potentially going to try for this Baron. At least get some vision control over here.
Let's take a look at the CS disparity, because that's something we haven't talked about a lot so far this game. 50 CS advantage for Instep in the top lane. Jungle's going to be about 20 for Voice. Mid lane is 40 for Azumi over Bubbles. Bottom lane, another 20 going the way for Intercourse over Talisman. Nobody's really exceptionally close, but the solo lanes are really far apart.
Right you are, and I would say that, yes, the lead on Instep, the CS lead, is very important. He does have this huge 50 CS lead over Hayam Nair, but a 50 CS lead on Shen isn't quite as good as the 40 or so CS lead that Azumi has over Bubbles. And Azir having a CS lead is really, really dangerous, because not only does Azumi have a CS lead, Azumi also has a kill lead. The only person in the game who has more kills than Azumi is actually Jetrix, and he hasn't gotten a kill in a while.
And when you compare the two champions, which one's going to be better as this game goes on and on and on? The hyper-scaling hyper-carry the mid lane, or the team-enabling early game-based jungler?
He will have to transition into being a tank. It's looking like he might potentially be picking up the Guardian Angel here. Not actually sure whether or not that's going to be the case, but we'll see. A couple people picking up a few things. Slowly but surely, the next dragon spawning in 30 seconds, and it will be yet another
Cloud Drake number 3. So if Spooky Midnight gets this one, they are all aboard the Cloud Drake Express.
When you think about it, though, that's a pretty...
Ooh, Talisman with a very nice point-blank arrow, but will it be enough to allow Nerv to keep him alive? Instep looking to find the kill onto Talisman. Nerv just looking to turn this one around, make it at least a 1-for-1. He's got to find the damage onto Bubbles, but Intercourse is here. Chrono Break comes out, and Nerv's got to run for his own life now just to get himself away. Neverclucky loses their AD carry, and Bubbles finds her opportunity.
Very unfortunate. Hayam Nair probably holding the trigger on that Chrono Break a little bit too long. He used a little bit sooner. Might have been able to actually get Bubbles. Bubbles did not have flash at that point. But that being said, the dragon has spawned. They can be able to get this Cloud Drake with relative ease. And that's
Like
3
that.
Cloud Drakes.
Honestly, that's my favorite part about the Cloud Drake is what Spooky Midnight has now, which is that really cool blue trail that's the Dead Man's Plate effect, but just with a palette swap behind you when you haven't been in combat. I love that thing.
What's really fun is actually, I've seen it with a Janna, so you have that with also the tornado behind you when you're running
that's
towards
gonna look
Janna.
really cool.
So it looks so cool, and also you're incredibly fast, because it's a bonus of 45 movement speed from just the dragon bonus. So team right now, once they get out of combat, they're really, really fast. So if they're on the receiving end of being chased, they're pretty good at being able to get away.
All right, so this
but sure.
game has been 1,500 gold apart for about the past 10 minutes now, and it has not gone anywhere. Neither team is really willing to yield an inch. There's been a couple advantages going one way, but then they're immediately answered by the other side. Still no inhibitors down, one exposed for Spooky Midnight.
Right you are, and kind of surprising that that inhibitor hasn't really been pressured any further. I guess part of that is because Neverclucky just hasn't been in a position to be able to do that. They finally managed to get that topside turret, Voice having to commit a little bit of time to come over here and get it. Potentially having some issues, but looking like he's getting out just in time. Being spotted out by a ward, though, that was just placed by Jetrix. He's gonna clear it out, though. There's no problem.
Clear it out, no big deal whatsoever. Intercourse just going to keep farming this one up. CS disparity still relatively large across the board. The biggest one of the biggest ones now, Voice has actually increased his lead up to over 40 compared to Jetrix Lee Sin.
That's pretty insane, all things
He's
considered.
got more gold than Jetrix now.
Yeah, like that's pretty insane because they've managed to get. They have 2 extra towers. He got all of the local gold from that tower kill topside. So he's got the bonus gold from that. He's got all the CS gold he has, and they have shutdown gold over them. They have assist gold. They have all of these small leads that maybe we'll be able to close the gap. The lead has declined to less than 1,000 gold now, so we're slowly seeing it go away.
Now we're seeing a fight get forced here in the mid lane. Voice trying to run himself away. Glacial Fissure going to be used defensively. Intercourse takes the back end of collateral damage, but he's got the return kill with True Shot Barrage. S Angel trying to keep himself safe, won't be able to do anything about it. Nerv having a chrono break. Angel's already dead. Nerv running himself away. What can he do against the Spooky Midnight onslaught? And the answer is nothing but run. Azumi Shinichi trying to do anything he can here. Intercourse over the wall looking for the damage onto Talisman Izumi. Anybody who will take it as Intercourse goes way too deep and is punished for his aggro.
It's a little bit ambitious there, Intercourse. I understand you're doing pretty good on Ezreal, but I don't think he could. Here's the thing. Even if he had gotten an ideal situation, I don't even think he could have killed Izumi, because Izumi was still pretty strong and still had the ability to flash away from anything he had. So just the damage Izumi can bring was easily going to be able to kill Intercourse. I don't actually know what he was thinking there. Maybe Worth?
Maybe he wanted to go over the wall. Maybe he thought Talisman would be right there. Because if he arcane shifted, auto attack, mystic shot right into Talisman, he would have killed him instantly. So maybe he was just thinking that he was going to predict Talisman's movement, take him down, and then walk away. Because he has flash up. So if he jumped over the wall like that, insta-gib Talisman, he could flash over the wall backwards and get himself free. I don't know. That's how I'm trying to justify this.
I mean, I guess there is the worst case scenario for Talisman where he was in a position to get hit by Intercourse, but unfortunately that just didn't happen. So Intercourse just made the strange play of
Just
arcane
straight
shifting
up
over wall by
suicided.
himself. Oh, Bubbles chasing one. I just want to point this out because we just saw that. Look at how fast Bubbles is going because of that Cloud Drake. That is incredibly terrifying when you're playing against a Twisted Fate and he locks a gold card because you know he's faster than you.
Very, very, very quick Twisted Fate, very quick Shen, very quickly, very quick everybody. That extra initiation potential might be the difference between a successful and an unsuccessful pick for this Spooky Midnight composition. Intercourse standing behind the Baron, auto-attacking it time and time again. But they're going to back away from this one. They're not comfortable taking it, not knowing exactly where Clucky is.
Lots of damage going over to Voice, but Angel managing to bail him out, no problems. Izumi backing to pick something up here. Like he's gonna grab himself. Is that an hourglass?
Now,
That is
one
an
important
hourglass.
thing to note, the next dragon is going to be spawning in a little over a minute, and that's just in time for it to be an Elder Dragon. So from here on out, the true damage burn will be on the table for whoever's able to take those, as we will see Spooky Midnight going for the Baron in earnest this time. Can their opponents get here in time? That's the question. Never Clucky needs to bust this attempt before it's successful, or else they're going to be in a world of hurt. Nibs in the middle, Collateral's already dead, Jetrix the next one to go, and we're talking about worlds of hurt. Spooky Midnight is living in one right now. Intercourse having to run himself away. He's so low. Nerv is hot in pursuit. Over the walls where he's got to go. Talisman falls. Voice takes down Instep. Nerv connects Parallel Convergence, but only the slow. It's Talisman for 4 as Intercourse is the last Spookster standing.
Have you ever had a really bad time? Because a really bad time for me is getting caught with your pants down in a Baron pit when there's an Azir nearby.
Spooky Midnight tried so hard to make that play work. They thought they could burn it in time. Never Clucky was nowhere nearby, but Clucky managed to get themselves together and get themselves where they needed to be in time. That Parallel Convergence just completely destroyed Collateral and Jetrix.
Oh, definitely. And the worst part about it is not only did you lose the Baron fight, you lose the Baron, you lose all the potential you had, and now, after that fight, suddenly, the lead is no longer there. It is now switched over to finally Never Clucky being in the lead after being behind, even only a little bit, for the longest time. Now with a very sizable 3k gold lead. See what they can do with this. They're potentially going to go straight for this Elder Dragon, or maybe they'll just kill Intercourse.
Maybe they'll just kill Intercourse indeed, or Collateral. That arrow is a certain sign of doom. Collateral's nothing but fish sticks, as Never Clucky has found their green light for taking down the Elder Dragon. They'll burn through it pretty quickly, as nobody from Spooky Midnight is willing to risk a 4v5 to try to contest it.
Well, when you're going for Intercourse, I guess it's nice to have a little bit of collateral damage.
Sometimes that's the way you gotta do it. Never Clucky now here in the mid lane. They've got the true damage burn. They've got the 5v4 for the next 12 seconds or so, and they want to make this one happen. Boys, gotta be careful though. Intercourse still hurts. That's 2 Mystic shots, taking them down to about half HP. Now the whole team's here. Now they're looking for inhibitor number 1, and they will find it no contest.
One thing about having this buff that they just got from the Elder Dragon, they did manage to get their boost of their AD and AP up to 12% now from 8% from the 1 Infernal Drake they had. Plus that extra burn, definitely not a position that Spooky Midnight wants to fight them in. They do still have the Baron buff too. The random destiny to teleport into the topside jungle. I don't actually know.
A little bit random. Instep's going to use his ultimate just to try to escape. Arrow's a little bit too slow. Can't take him out in time. As Spooky Midnight has found themselves in a 4,000 gold deficit.
So it occurs to me that even though Instep had a fairly large lead, he's only built defensively. He still doesn't have the Titanic Hydra that we usually see Shen's picking up to do a little bit of extra damage. So the rest of Never Clucky just isn't really scared of him. Yeah, sure, he's annoying. He can taunt you, and he can maybe prevent some damage, but not really much more besides that. Do see a little bit more coming out. Oh, never mind. Looking like we're going to see a little bit focus towards this top side. Voice pushing up that lane, trying to get his team able to take down this tower. When you've got everyone here but Izumi and not actually sure how it's going to go, probably just better just to give up this tower.
Turret's going to be given up for free, 6 compared to 3 now in the favor of Never Clucky, as they're knocking on the door, the top side of the base. Instep's nowhere nearby. He does not have his ultimate. TP is available, but he cannot use the shield to save one of his allies. Intercourse having to run himself away using the power of the Mercurial Scimitar. The QSS down, that means he's in dire trouble if another CC should connect. There's the winner's bite. There's the follow-up facial fissure. Won't connect onto anyone. Angel having to walk himself away. He has to use Flash just to stay alive. Instep's trying to soak damage, but he's not super soaky just quite yet. Jetrix going to have his GA popped immediately, as Izumi, Shinichi, and Angel are both at death's door. Collateral and Intercourse trying to poke at the Never Clucky squad, maybe do something to someone, but Never Clucky is out of there with an inhibitor under their belts.
Intercourse needs to be careful.
Bubbles up the wall. Bubbles wants to go in as well. They're looking to force the fight. Voice already kills Bubbles immediately, and now Spooky Midnight is trying to force an issue that they might not be able to make happen. So much damage, so many soldiers, so much disaster for Spooky Midnight. They try to go deep, and all they find is the enemy AD carry, losing everyone except for Jetrix.
Huge props to Nerb there. If you didn't even see what he did, he actually placed the parallel conversions on the wall in such a way that they rounded the corner and walked into it, stunning both of them, forcing Intercourse to actually die there. Very unfortunate. Jetrix trying to get a little bit of a return kill here, but not too much he can do about it.
Won't get anything except a loss on his and Spooky Midnight's record. Never Clucky comes back from a pretty nasty early game disadvantage and takes down Spooky Midnight in 39 minutes. Stick around, everybody. Like I said, we're actually having this kind of pseudo best-of-2 setup today. So the very next match is going to be Spooky Midnight on the blue team and Never Clucky on the red team. We'll have to see how the teams adapt to each other and change up their play styles and see if Spooky Midnight can make this an even day. Stick around. House Party 5v5 will be right back.